Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you, and thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. Today we're going to be taking a look at a trio of fantastic ryes that I picked up within the last mid-2025, okay? One is just a value buy, okay? This Bulleit rye is a 12-year-old limited expression from them. That is all sourced rye whiskey from Indiana, MGP. 95.5 rye, of course, is that mash bill. But again, that $50 to $60 price point for a 12 and 17-year-old rye whiskey is pretty impressive. So we're going to take a look at that one. We're going to follow it up by doubling the money, but also probably doubling the impact of the rye whiskey to the Michter's Barrel Strength Limited Edition Expression. Now this is 2025's, and it is bottled at 110.4 proof, okay? No age statement on this one, but people suggest it's anywhere from 5 to 8 years old typically, and we'll see how that comes through on flavor profile if I feel that's any older than that. Let's see. Last but not least, the most unique rye of them all, and I mean pretty much of them all, is the Wolves rye whiskey. Now this is a rye whiskey and hop flavored whiskey combined. Okay, matter of fact, if I look right here on the front, yep, rye whiskey and hop flavored whiskey made in California at 103 proof, 103. And I have not poured that one yet because I know how potent the aromatics are on it because of that hop whiskey that's involved. But to tell you a little bit about it and the background on it, so Wolves is a brand that was started pretty much by a fashion, what's the word, kind of mogul and a sneakerhead, or really, a guy that started a fantastic sneaker boutique. And these two guys got together and they hired Marco from Charbet, their master distiller. Karakasovic is his name. And Marco has been distilling in Charbet, I mean, we going back to the 80s as long as he's been there. I remember visiting him at his distillery back in the 90s, but he's been there a very long time. He's done IPA and beer distilled whiskeys before. He did a Racer IPA whiskey back then that was unaged and then an aged version so you could compare them. But there was just a straight up beer that he distilled. So basically they're taking a page out of his book right there, letting him distill an pale ale and a stout that he had distilled, aged them up for, I think, 9 years for the stout, 7 years for the pale ale, and then blended in some 6 and 7-year-old sourced rye to that. And that's what this is, okay? Super unique, and it's all about the hops. The hops that were in that beer is what really makes a huge impact here. But we're going to taste that at the very end. But let's start with Bulleit Rye, 12-year. We'll nose and taste it. All right, on the nose. Pretty sweet rye. I'll say that right out the gate. Sweet with lots of cherries. Caramel apple type thing. Brown sugar. Lots of cherry. A little bit of plum in there with it. But that cherry is just intense. Caramel apple's nice. It's not as bright on the nose as I'd hoped, but definitely a lot of oak in this one. The leather is in here, so it's definitely some older whiskey involved. Lots of citrus, and this is all about, I would say, orange oils and lemon zest here. There's some light roasted coffee bean tone. But let's go ahead and taste it. Wow. Trying to check that viscosity. Solid medium viscosity. It's not much higher than that. But what I was noticing was how sweet it initially feels. Feels super sweet. And then it quickly fades, goes into that oak, and kind of whispers away pretty quick. Like, it's not a super long rye, but it's pretty enjoyable in what it's doing. So let's start with those notes. Brown sugar, orange oils, that lemon zest is in there. That big cherry, almost coming off like a like a little bit of blackberry in there with it. A little bit of cola. It's almost like walnut because it's a little nutty, but it's a woody nut. So walnut going right into that big oak. And there's a fair amount of oak in here. A touch of clove. A little of cinnamon, not a lot. But just resinous oak in here. The rye that's in it isn't super bright because it's so old that it's kind of covering up some of that rye grain, some of that rye spice you're typically used to. Yeah, but that little bit of that kind of like caramel and the apple and that kind of plum with those berries work really nicely. That citrus is just popping throughout the whole thing. For the money, $50, $60, really solid rye, okay? It's nothing that's gonna, you're not gonna, I personally wouldn't buy a whole lot of this one. I would just want one bottle, maybe two, call it a day. Because it's not something I'm gonna go after a lot because it is a little drying. That walnut oak aspect on the finish makes me want to just have a glass and then put it aside. It's almost like that, yeah, like little coffee bean in there as well. Coffee grounds. Man, but it's got a lot of flavor. It's lingering. 2 sips and it was still there. Okay, Michter's Barrel Strength Rye, 2025. All right, here we go. This is more what I'm expecting when you say a really good barrel strength rye. This is it. It's definitely a little more of a bourbon-ish rye. So if you think back to when Booker's did his big time batch rye, and that was a very bourbony rye. It's almost like a bourbon maker is making a rye. So it has a lot of heavy influence of that. A lot of corn, that type thing. Well, this is kind of in that vein. Brown sugar. That caramel apple is back, but it's bigger. Not nearly as much citrus, although there is a little citrus oil in it. Plums, lots more plums here. And then on this one, that oak, you can really smell that sweet oak. I like that. That's one thing I always love about mature bourbon or mature rye when they get that really sweet oak. Not drying. This one still smells juicy, all the fruits, that big vanilla kind of in that oak. It's almost like a little bit of that, little hint of that rye bread. And a little bit of floral in there. When I back out of the glass enough, you kind of get into a little bit of floral territory in with all that fruit. But let's go ahead and taste it. Beautiful. Medium high viscosity. Inner's so soft. 110.4, drinks like it's 100 proof, maybe. Feels slightly above medium viscosity. And when it enters, it's brown sugar, clove, big caramel apple, really ripe apple in the center of that, by the way. Loads of kind of, and I would call this one kind of just a really nice, lightly roasted coffee bean in here, along with some 60% dark chocolate in there. Not quite milk, but not quite heavy dark. It's almost right in that middle. Very savory. Draws you right into that glass, makes you want to have another pour. Definitely some nuttiness in here. There's a little bit of, it kind of flashes like a direct combination hybrid of peanut and peanut almond type thing right there. Very bookish, some leather tone as well. And with that kind of gives me that old rye character. So this one reminds me nothing like a 5-year-old, because I'm not getting any kind of like lemon and pine, even though this gave me some lemon zest. And that's old whiskey, old rye. But typically on the younger ryes, you'll find that kind of bright lemon and all that stuff, super floral, piney. That's not this one. Definitely much older. It feels like a really good 8-year-old rye is what that tastes like. I mean, it lingers with the barrel char, that leather. And again, it kind of reminds me of bourbon on the finish more than it even does rye, because of that rich, sweet vanilla oak thing that's just running. That's a beaut. I love that one. Okay. To the wolves. Now, this one, I'll tell you the story on this one. I wouldn't have bought this at $100, okay, had I not tried it first. Happened to be at a great liquor store in Memphis, and if you're ever in Memphis, 901 Wine and Spirits, owner's Jeff Cool. Got to go by there. But he had this bottle open, and he let us taste it. When I tasted it, I had to buy it, because I was like, it's so unique. There's nothing like it. This is very educational for people that drink rye and enjoy rye. Something that's totally different. But again, it's a basically beer that's been distilled and aged, and then added some rye whiskey, 6 and 7-year-old rye to that. So the youngest being 6-year-old, and the youngest of the age stuff was in the beer was 7 and 9. Okay. Good grief, this thing's crazy. So the hops definitely remind me on the craft beer world of West Coast hops. And the West Coast hops usually are pretty dank. And this is a lot of dank. This one you get like, almost like, it's crazy, but it's like a combination of rye bread, biscotti together, in with some kind of white wine, or it's pale ale, like a light beer. It's what it noses like. Because you get a little bit of pear, golden apple, some golden raisins, some, like, it's almost, it reminds me of kumquats is what it reminds me of. Kumquats, tangerine almost in it. And then that big floral hop that is just so dank. Not a lot of oak or anything like that by no means, but lots of that grapeseed oil from that rye characteristic. Grapeseed or linseed, it's one of those right up in the nose. All right, let's taste it. That's such a wild card, and it's so enjoyable, because the second I tasted it, the first thing that hit me was there's a chili pepper on this. Not spicy, but it definitely is chili pepper, like ancho chilies, a little bit of hatch. That flavor of the pepper, not the spice, is in here. It reminds me of the old Prairie Bomb beers. Remember how those used to be? It was a chili and chocolate infused beer. And this has that same characteristic, ancho hatch. But when you taste it, the sweetness, kind of like caramel, kind of like a really light maple syrup. And then you get hit immediately with that big, heavy, like malty base. And it kind of has a little bit of those, again, those, but it's not like a typical whiskey where you can pick out those real flavors. These are nuanced into that kind of wine-ish, beerish territory, that white wine beer, light beer territory. You get that kind of golden apple, golden raisins, that real light, fresh, almost like a little bit of fresh plum, but also some baked pears, honey, that type thing. And then you get that light floral hit when the hops come in, and it's just like a hop. So it's really clean, like in a good IPA, maybe like a triple IPA where it's kind of sweet, almost heading tropical, but it stays in that kind of tangerine realm. That's this one. But viscosity, medium high, dang, medium high viscosity. Ooh wee. And then on that back end, you still get the chilies, but that hop characteristic, it almost reminds me. I mean, it's like, again, it's super dank. So if you ever been to a Cypress Hill concert, it's kind of like that. You pick that up in there. Not, it's not crazy. I've had it at different phases. See, this one is about here. I think when it gets to about halfway, when it oxidizes a little more, that comes out even more. But right now it's very easy. It's moderate, and it feels like it's moderate amount of that kind of dank characteristic. But I know I've had it when it was lower and it was super, really heavy. And there's not a lot of things that kind of give you that earthy, dank tone. There's really not. I mean, short of going into brandies, some old cognacs, when they start going into rancio, they'll sometimes give you a little bit of that. Some earthy bourbons will occasionally give you that, like some old medley bourbons used to do that, the barrel strength medleys. Wathans would do that. Yeah, that was that Wathans barrel strength. They would definitely do that. But super enjoyable, juicy. This is a juicy rye. I love this one. So if you can, and you feel like dropping $100 or something super unique, I feel like a glass of that, and I'm kind of done though, because it's very flavorful, right? This is one I feel like I could go after all day. This is one I feel like one glass and I'm done. So these two are sparingly, and this one you'll probably run through, so you got to be careful. But I hope you enjoyed this video review, and if you did, join us over at patreon.com/LiquorHound. That's where I'm able to, with your support, as little as $5 a month, continue to self-purchase these bottles, because I did buy each and every one of these. These are not sent to me by distilleries or given to me by people. These are things that I bought, tried, liked, and decided to share with you, my viewers. So again, with my patron support, I'm able to continue this, and so I would, again, very much appreciate it if you would show your support and keeping this channel going, because from day one, 2011, when I first started this, when it was pretty much just me and Ralphie and I think Jason Pyle doing reviews, that's why I've done it. It's just to help you. And it's never been about the views. It's never been about my, the subscribers and all that. It's not about that for me. I do it to help you, because I know the people that watch me want to learn about good spirits. They want to know what to buy, what not to buy. And that's my goal. So if you can, join me over there. And until next time, keep leaving all those great comments, and I'll get to them just as soon as I can. Everyone have a great day, and cheers.